My name's Peggy Padalino. I'm the Vice President of Client Services at Jobfox. I'd like to welcome you and thank you all for joining us. Our goal today is to give you some key strategies that will help you ace the interview. We're going to talk about how to be prepared for certain questions in the interview and how to leave an impactful and positive impression on the interviewer. So I have a few people on the call today that I'd like to introduce. First is our keynote speaker, Sally Morrison. We feel very fortunate to have Sally on the call today. In addition to being one of our fantastic certified professional resume writers, Sally is also a certified job and career transition coach. She provides one-on-one career direction and job search strategy to job seekers at all levels. Recently, Sally co-authored and published a book called A Taste for Work, which is full of proven career advice recipes and directions for career advancement. I also have on the phone, calling in from the Washington area, Renee Hicks. Renee is a Jobfox member and a resume client, and she's going to share the story of how her new resume helped her ace the interview. Last but not least, I also have with me in the Jobfox office, which is where we're broadcasting from, I have some of your resume consultants, and you may recognize some of these names. We have Andrew Manning, Patrick Taylor, Ian Richards, and Jeremy Brooks, and they'll be here to answer any questions that you may have, either during the call or after. Okay, now to the agenda. First, Sally is going to speak for about 20 minutes. Her presentation will cover developing an interview strategy and proving your value to the employer. And she's also going to talk about some key questions you should always be prepared to answer and how to answer them. Then Renee is going to tell us her story. And then lastly, we're going to have a Q&A session. Now, because there's so many people on the phone, right now we have you all on mute. And the way we'd like to handle the Q&A is for you to ask your questions using the chat box on the right side of your screen. I have several people here. Your resume consultants are collecting your questions throughout the session, and we're going to try to answer as many of those as possible at the end of the session. Okay? We're going to try to condense a lot into a short period of time because I know you're all very busy trying to get your resumes all spruced up and out in front of employers. But in the meantime, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Sally.
To talk about interviewing and interview strategies. You know, we could talk about interviewing all day long, but we only have about 15 or 20 minutes, so I'm going to condense quite a bit into a longer presentation. But if I can be of further help, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I'm happy to answer questions, and you can also take a look at my website, which can answer some questions for you. So take a moment and think about interviewing and how you felt on your last interview. Too many job seekers picture the interview process as an athletic competition. They assume that the challenge is to score points for their content and style with each question, or really what they're trying to do is to put together a better answer to the question so that they get a higher score. And then if they do really well, they'll win the interview and then get the job offer. However, it's not just about scoring the highest number of points. It's really focusing on specific issues that need to be addressed. You are being evaluated, that's true. And you definitely want to be articulate, credible, and professional. But there are some very specific things that you need to accomplish in an interview. First, you really want to develop a rapport with the interviewer and create a relationship that's going to last beyond the first interview. And, you know, you look at several different stages of the interview. The first little piece is generally with a screener or an HR generalist that you're going to answer some specific questions that will take you to the next level. And it might not be until the third level that you are really sitting in front of the person that makes the decision about whether you get the job or not, the hiring manager. So you have to prepare for all of those, and you start by building a relationship with that first person, the HR generalist, because it really has a lot to do with rapport. And we're a little hampered these days because we have to add in some new things in that you might be doing a telephone interview where you're not even looking at anyone, kind of like what we're doing now, except you have a PowerPoint to look at. Or you might be looking at a camera on your computer, which is also an interesting thing to do. So there are a couple of things that you consider when you're building rapport. There are several ways to go about doing that. You also have to understand and address the potential employer's concerns and priorities. What is it that they are really, really concerned about? If this is a company that has been going on for a while, well, they've made it through 3 years or so of a very, very difficult economy, and they are looking forward and moving ahead to better things. That's really what they're hoping to do. So you want to be able to understand their concerns and what they are prioritizing. You also want to emphasize your ability to fit into the organization. Where do you fit? How do you fit? Is it a good fit for you as well as for them? Is there a comfortable cultural bond between you and this company? So there are many ways to answer a question, but there are definitely some that you want to focus on. And during an interview, your challenge is to use the options that will highlight your value and why you're a good fit for the company. So you want to understand and address the employer's needs and never miss an opportunity to reinforce the value that you can bring to an organization. So let's talk a minute about strategy. I think preparing in advance for an interview is absolutely crucial. Anything can happen. I had a client a few years ago who was having the very difficult circumstance of meeting with someone while they were at an airport. So both people were between flights. And you can imagine this person is dressed for an interview, striding through the concourse of the airport, lots of people around, and a 2-year-old came out of nowhere and dumped an ice cream cone all over both of his shoes. So there he is, ice cream all over his shoes, not really sure what to do. Fortunately, he was early enough for the interview and had the presence of mind to be able to clean off and go into one of the shoe shine places and get a quick shoe shine, and he was able to still meet his contact on time, and by the way, he did get a job offer. Now, the person he was actually meeting was the hiring authority, so he was already a little bit further along in the interview process, but because he was prepared and he had his strategy in place, he had all of his tools ready for that interview, he was able to handle the little emergency without totally falling apart. So you have about 10 seconds to make a good first impression. And advanced preparation, right down to allowing for last-minute problems, will help you make a good first impression. There are generally several interviews before an offer comes, and with every interview, you're looking at painting a coherent picture of yourself that develops and reinforces the theme, or your fundamental theme, your brand, so to speak, that you can make a difference for the prospective employer. Now, though it may be difficult during the interview, you need to think when a question is asked. What's the point of this question? Why is it being asked? So what is this question going to let me do or illustrate for the prospective employer? Obviously, the employer is looking to minimize the risk of hiring a new employee. No matter how wonderful you are or what you are bringing to the table, you are also bringing with you a bit of risk. So you have to be able to minimize that so the employer can see that you're going to fit right into the works there without a lot of struggle. So every interview question is really probing some dimension of your capability and your motivation. Why are you really there? So you're selling solutions to the needs and priorities of the company. Some of your solutions include your expertise in the form of knowledge and maybe technical skills. What are your specific experiences and your transferable skills? What's your motivation about your role and your responsibility? What is it that gets you really fired up? No one wants to talk you into coming to work for them. They want you to be excited about working for them. So you're bringing with you that motivation and excitement. Clearly, you have to understand and address the needs of the employer and never miss an opportunity to reinforce the value that you can bring to the organization. Now, if you Jobfox people can hear me, for some reason I'm not able to advance the slide. So if you want to go ahead and advance that, that's great. Okay, so as we mentioned, what is it that everyone's worried about today? Everybody's worried about money. If you are looking at a company that has been able to make it through this economy for the last couple of years, they're looking at this new year as a time to really launch and to really move themselves to the next level. So you need to be able to prove that you are worth the money that they are going to be paying you to do that position. And you were first doing that when you had your resume designed by Jobfox, because when we're writing resumes for you, we're helping you focus on what are some of your key achievements, what is it that you can prove to that company, what value can you add. So if you can prove that, you're going to have a much better chance of getting the job. What value can you add? Can you prove it? And then why do you want the position? You can't assume that the interviewer is very good at interviewing. That's really true. By the time you get to the second or third interview, you may have started to move away from the HR people who are really skilled and trained to interviewing, and you may be talking with people who their main job is something completely different. It might be the engineer, it might be the CEO, whatever it is. That is not their talent and their skill. So you have to be able to sell yourself and help the employer or the interviewer clearly see how you fit into the organization. So if we can go to the next screen, we can take a look at something key to help you prepare to sell yourself using power statements. The best way to make a lasting positive impression on prospective employers is to use a power statement. A power statement allows you to emphasize your worth, and using this type of a statement to answer the question leaves the employer with specific proof or evidence that you will do for their company what you've done in the past. And that is really key. And another place you can use a power statement is to get the interview back on track. For example, if you had to explain an employment gap or cover an uncomfortable departure from a former employer, using a power statement helps you to kind of bring it back into what you want them to know about you. How did you handle difficult and challenging situations? What was your strategy for that? How did you save money? How did you generate revenue? Did you improve performance, or did you improve production? Did you help your staff make improvements without spending more money, or were you able to save money in a certain way? So there's a lot of reasons that a power statement can be really crucial to keeping that interview on track and for turning it the way you want it to go. So let's look at the next screen, and that is the basic structure of a power statement. You've probably heard about power statements before. If they're not called power statements, Sometimes they're called PAR statement, problem, action, result. Other times, I've heard them called a number of different things, bullets and stars and whatnot. But here's the basic structure for it. What you're really trying to do is give an example of a problem that you've encountered. And you want to be able to relate that problem to perhaps something that company is also looking at addressing. So you're going to be very, very specific in dealing with this problem. And then, what was the action that you took to resolve the problem? How did you pull things in place? Were you able to train your staff better to work with customers effectively? Were you able to look at supply chain and see of a place where you can cut costs, streamline your costs? Were you able to encounter new markets and look at things from a global perspective, and maybe the company hadn't done that before? So what action did you take that really started to resolve the problem? And then what was the end result? What happened because you took that appropriate action? The result is where the aha moment can come in for the prospective employer. They're able to look at it and say, oh, okay, that's what I want to have done in my company as well. So when you're using power statement, you can use something like this to answer a behavior-based question. You can use this when you are discussing your reason for leaving. It covers the question, why should I hire you? Because you're leaving with them a story of why they really are interested in you. And this is your place to tell the story. And you know, the interesting thing that often happens when you're using a power statement is that you get kind of excited about what you were doing before, and then you're able to go back to that motivation. What is it that gets me excited about doing this job? You're able to go back to it and say, well, you know, I remember when I did this. This is when I was at my best. So you're leaving a positive example for the employer to remember. So when you are walking out of that interview, that's what they're remembering about you. They're remembering the result, and they're remembering the action, and they're not thinking so much about the problem, but they're focusing on how you were able to really help that former company make a difference. It allows you to tell the story of your success. So let me give you an example. Given the state of the economy, my former company needed to make some cost-cutting efforts. Therefore, I reduced overhead expenses more than 30% annually by developing and implementing a centralized approach to inventory. In addition, I opened national accounts for office space, furniture, equipment, and vehicles. This allowed us to take advantage of key pricing strategies, which continues to be successful today. So there you go. Problem, the company needed to do some cost cutting. One thing, I was able to reduce overhead expenses, and I did this by opening national accounts. I ended up saving 30% annually, and by the way, they're still using this, even though I'm no longer with them or I'm looking to leave them, they're still using this. So there was my success. In my opinion, you want to have about 10 or 15 power statements prepared from your career, and it doesn't just have to be from your last job. It can be from several jobs that will give you enough information to be ready for that interview. You're not going to use 10 or 15, but if you have them prepared, then when you get into that situation where you really start rolling along with the interview, you're able to start pulling those from your mind and throwing them out there for the prospective employer. And again, if you look back at your resume, when you have your resume written by us, you're going to see that it'll be easy to use some of those bullet points and those key achievements to help you put together a really good power statement. Now, let's talk about the last question that we're able to cover today, and that's, why do you want the job? So if we can take a look at that. That's a good question. And generally, you are asked that question in one way, shape, or form because it allows you, I think companies want to know, are you interested in them? Are you looking at this as a career move, or are you just looking at, oh, hey, I need a job? And, it's true, you need a job, but you're looking at this as a career move. So have you done your research and analysis of the company? Because that's something that you want to do first so that you know that your skills are a good fit and you are beginning to get some idea of where the company is going. This question gives you the opportunity to tell the interviewer what you've learned about the company and why it's appealing to you. And again, being specific is pretty key here. It's interesting. I've had many, many clients say to me that it's easier to go to work every day than to look for a job. And I bet all of you or most of you are going to agree with that because it's absolutely true. If you're looking for a job, it never goes away. You've gone through the holidays and you've probably partied along and had a great time, but at the same time in the back of your mind was, oh, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job. So it is a lot of work, and this is another piece of work that really needs to be done because this takes you a little bit of time to research and analyze every company that you're going to be interviewing with. So after extensive research, you can find that a company is best suited for your skills and your abilities, and because it is a good match for you, it will allow you to make a good contribution. And again, you can use your power statements to help make a connection between your former success and the ability to bring that success to the new company. So how does it relate to, how do your abilities relate to their focus and their market? So again, you're looking to your personality and what motivates you and how that relates. Any details that you might know from the job posting that you've seen somewhere, from your networking contact, from the recruiter that you're working with, or from wherever you learned about the opportunity. So that can help you prepare to answer that question, why do you want the job? So let's say perhaps you know that they're looking for an executive level person to overhaul their marketing department and their existing program from the ground up. If you thrive on growth and you thrive on challenges and making things happen, that's the answer that you want to convey to them, along with the examples, which again, you're getting from your power statements, that you have established, that you have rebuilt campaigns, that you have grown them, and you've already experienced that in a parallel situation. So the question, why do you want the job, is designed to show how you can benefit the company, not how the company is going to necessarily benefit you. Although it is a two-way thing, your job in the interview is to show how you're going to benefit them. So the focus has to be on how you will help them and how you can move together. So this tactic will help you stand out from the crowd and leave a positive impression. Now, my time is almost up, so let me just take a moment to review a few items. You definitely want to prepare your interview strategy. You want to be early. You want to have some comfort in the knowledge that you have your tools ready for that interview, so that if something comes up at the last minute, you can deal with it. And in fact, if you want to email me later, I'll tell you all the things that happened to me this morning in getting ready for this. Not all the things, but some of the things that happened to me this morning in getting ready for this. You want to be prepared to sell yourself and show your value. You want to perfect your power statements. And if you have 10 or 15 of them under your belt, then you are going to be ready to go with it. You want to have done a lot of research on the specific company that you're interviewing with, so the interviewer knows how motivated you are to work for their company. It's been a pleasure to be with you this morning. If I can be of further help to you with interview or job search techniques in general, feel free to email me or go to my website. And also, if you go to my website, I do have a free ebook on there, 5 Essential Steps to Getting a Job. So thank you for your time, and if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to help with that. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks so much, Sally. That was fantastic, and those were some great recommendations. I know we all go into interviews with a lot of trepidation. I would feel a lot more comfortable going into an interview today if I use this structure to prepare for that interview. So this is great. By the way, for folks out there, you are going to receive a link to this presentation with all of the slides sometime later today or tomorrow morning, as soon as we can get it out. So for those of you who want to kind of use this as a structure to prepare for interviews, not to worry, it's coming your way. Okay. Next we have Renee, and Renee, as I mentioned, is a resume client and a Jobfox member, and she's going to talk a little bit about how having her resume rewritten by Jobfox helped her not only land the interview, but also more downstream once she started in on the interview. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Renee.
Thanks, Peggy. My background, I used to be a recruiter years ago, so I always felt like I had a real grip on how to design a resume, what was effective, et cetera. Well, I made a decision fairly recently to try something different. I made a decision to utilize Jobfox's resume service, wanted a new set of eyeballs, some real experienced professionals to take a look at what I had and maybe improve on what I had started with. The impact of making that decision really came through when a director actually called me from a large media company and said that he was responding to my online resume. And one of the first things he shared with me was that he was really impressed with how I presented myself through my resume. Our phone conversation turned into an actual phone interview, and I really do believe, based on how my resume was structured, how my accomplishments were highlighted from my last employer, I was really able to advance further through the interviewing process. And I know it's because my strengths were highlighted and I was prepared to interview based on how everything was structured through my new resume. I ended up taking another opportunity, but the same company, ironically enough, became a client of mine a few years later. And I really do believe the goodwill, the respect and credibility that was established from that really positive interviewing experience made for a great foundation in transitioning into a business relationship with that actual organization. So you never know where a good interview and being prepared will lead you to.
Great. Well, Renee, thank you. That's an interesting story, because in the end you decided not to take the job, but ultimately the relationship you built certainly helped you in a business arrangement. So that's great. You never know who you meet and what it could mean to you. Okay. Well, we have a ton of questions, and the resume consultants have been feverishly trying to figure out how to narrow it down to a few of the key questions that have been asked by a number of folks. So I have about 6 or 7 questions, and we have a few people. Renee will be answering. There's one for Renee. There's a few for Sally, and a couple that I'll be answering. So let's go ahead with the Q&A. If your question is not answered, please feel free to call the resume line and speak with one of our resume consultants. If it's a very specific interview question, we'll be happy to pass it off to Sally and get you an answer. If it's a resume question, certainly those are the questions that we can field. Okay, so first question, and this one is for Sally.
Okay.
And it's about power statements. And the question is, how specific should I be in my power statement?
You should be very specific in your power statement and focus most on what action did you take to solve the issue and what was the end result. That's what the prospective employer is really going to remember. And this is the place in the interview where you are allowed to tell the story about really what happened. And you will find that as you start to tell that story, you become a little bit more animated, and that helps to build that rapport with the interviewer and then the interviewer gets more interested and starts asking you more questions, and that allows the conversation to evolve about what it is you can do for that company. And it is key to have as many details about it as you can. Now, I firmly believe that it's very beneficial to you if you can do a practice interview with someone. And you don't want your answer to sound canned. Now, when I read you the example, I was reading you the example. If that were my power statement, I would want to have it down so that it rolls out and I start telling you the story, and you get excited right along with me. And so practicing it with someone would be very helpful to you, whether you're doing it by video or you are, just sitting across from a person. But that would be my recommendation. But you want to be very specific.
Okay, great. All right. Next question, this one's for Renee. What were the biggest differences between your old resume and your new resume that you think helped you get the interview?
I think the biggest difference between the old and the new resume is that the old resume didn't have a very strong summary section. I don't think it highlighted my skills and my strengths enough to really jump off the page. The big difference with the new resume is that it had bolder statements. I think it conveyed more confidence. The information was more concise, more white space. And I think the skills and the accomplishments were right up front. So any employer that's interested in my background could see what I brought to the table right away.
Great. Okay. Good. I'm going to take this question because this is one that actually a number of people asked about, and that is, how do interviewers feel about professionally written resumes? Don't they expect you to be able to write your own? It's a question that we're asked a lot when folks call into the resume writers, because many of you out there have never even considered having someone professionally write your resume, and think that it could possibly have a negative impression on an interviewer. And the reality is that we deal with, and the reason I want to take this question is I have for the past 20 years worked with hiring managers and recruiters, and the answer to that question is absolutely not. Recruiters and hiring managers really just care about the content of your resume, how it's presented, and can it easily be read, and is it organized in a way that they can pull out the specific things they're looking for. That's what they care about. They're looking for skills and accomplishments. If they can't find them quickly, they're going to move on to the next resume. So I think the fact that you've taken the time to present yourself in a professional way and are smart enough to seek some professional help to portray the right image, I think it actually bodes very well for you in an interview, and interviewers respect that and appreciate it. So it's really all about presenting yourself in the most positive and professional light. Okay, next question, and I'm going to have John Scott, who is our manager of customer service, answer this question, because this is one that he gets all the time, okay? And John, the question is there any guarantee that I will get an interview if I purchase a resume rewrite? That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, that is a great question, and that's definitely something that our clients are constantly asking me about. As a matter of fact, we do. We guarantee that you will receive an interview within the first 60 days of having your resume professionally written. We feel that the single most important factor in landing an interview is the resume. As Sally and the rest of our writers would agree, I think presenting yourself in a professional and attention-grabbing way will make you stand out from your job-seeking competitors, the countless individuals who are applying for that same job that you want. So really any advantage that you can have, especially on your resume, will certainly, get you that interview that you're seeking. There is a responsibility on your part to apply to the right kinds of jobs and make sure that you're being proactive in your search. But as long as you're doing so, our clients say that not only going through the process helps them in the interview process, but they're landing, more callbacks, more feedback from employers. So I know Peggy will discuss in more detail a special offer that goes into a little more detail on this 60-day guarantee, but I can assure you that by using our service, we're going to rewrite your resume for free if you don't get that interview within 60 days.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. All right, next question is for Sally, and the question is, this is kind of switching topics a little, but it's one that so many people asked that I think we want to go ahead and answer it, is how do you negotiate a salary in an interview?
That is a good question. And I do think it's an ongoing learning process, because there are times that you're going to be very, very effective and get exactly what you want. And then there are other times you're going to walk away thinking, I bet there was more money on the table. So the first thing that I would say is that the person who mentions the dollar amount first is the loser. So you really want to try to avoid it being you. And again, as with preparing for an interview, you have to prepare yourself for the salary question. And there are websites that can help you get an idea of what you should be paid, although there's no guarantee that you're going to be paid something specific, but at least you'll get an idea of what it's going to be. And so be ready with it before you get into that discussion, and make sure that you're ready for the discussion. So sometimes the screener will use that question to see if you are in the ballpark, but you've already decided, I'm willing to go down a little bit, or maybe this is my time to boost a little bit. So have several answers ready when that first question is asked, like, what are you looking for a starting salary? You could say something like, I'm sure that the salary is really dependent on the responsibilities of the job and the standards of the industry. What is it that you generally offer someone with my experience? Or I'm sure we can come to a fair agreement. Or another statement would be, I'd like to table that discussion until you've decided you are really offering me the position. I have some more questions for you. So what you're trying to do is really turn it back to them. Now, sometimes you actually get, pushed against the wall and you have to give some kind of a number. And that's where your homework is going to come into helping you a bit, because you're going to be able to say, I'm looking for, this and this. And then you want to put it into a range. I'm looking for something in about the 110,000 range to 115,000 or whatever. The other thing that you want to be able to look at, and there, again, are some great sites to help you make that determination. One site is called Career One Stop, which is a government site put out by the Department of Labor, and you can get an idea, okay, I live in Illinois, but this job is in California, where maybe the cost of living is higher. What are they likely to be paying there, so you have an idea of how that sounds, and then you can put your range together saying, okay, this salary that I'm stating is including the benefits, or this is just the bare bones salary, so you get a little bit of an idea. And then the other thing is, when you're actually negotiating the salary, there's an offer on the table and you're negotiating it. If you can do it face to face, you have more of an advantage. Rather than if you are talking on the phone or going, through email or whatever. If you can't, make sure that you have it in front of you in writing so that everything is clear for you and for the prospective employer. So that's basically my answer on that. Oh, one other thing I did want to say, though, a lot of times, no matter what salary level you're looking at, you have to fill out an online application, and that's where they get you with the salary question. How do you do that? An online application doesn't give you a lot of options, and that's why you have to do a little research to determine, am I going to include my benefits into that salary number, or am I going to leave, the benefits out?
Right. Okay. Thanks, Sally. And then another question for Sally, again, a question that's always asked, How do I explain why I left my last employer?
That's a great question, and I think, unless someone's been living in a submarine for the last couple of years, they probably know that the reason you left your last position is because the economy has been very difficult and your company hasn't done well. Now, that isn't always the case. There are other reasons that you leave a position, but they ask you that because they want your reaction. And a lot of times when you are sitting in the hot seat of being interviewed, you get nervous. You get the deer in the headlight look. You get that shocked look, and then all the negative things start racing through your mind. So there's basically 4 points you want to consider when you're leaving your position. What provoked the company's decision? Why is it that they decided to either let you go or eliminate your position? You have to address that. Why was it a good decision, or, what was the impact on you of that decision? What did you accomplish while you worked at that company? And I'm sure you realize when I say that, you can use a power statement there. And where are you going now? What are your options? What's the next positive step that you're looking to take? You don't want to dwell on this question very long, but you want to have it prepared. So avoid using negatively charged words such as unfortunately, I was downsized, I was right-sized, or my favorite is I was terminated, which sounds horrible when you say something like that. So make it as positive as you can. Here's an example. As in many organizations these days, my former company was undergoing some changes. So there you go. That's what prompted the action. The company determined that they had to redistribute their headcount, and I was affected by that restructuring. So that was the impact. Third, however, while I was there, I reduced overhead expenses more than 10% annually by developing and implementing a centralized approach to inventory. So again, there's one of your contributions. And then lastly, I'm interested in using my skills in management and logistics in a company similar to yours or a company like yours. So you're projecting, okay, here is the new step that I want to take, and this is where I'm going. So keep it short and sweet, but at the same time, don't get nervous and just start rambling. Give your answer, stop talking, and if they don't say something, you can ask them a question.
Okay, great. Great advice, Sally. Thank you. All right. Last question, and I'm going to take this one. And the question is, the big question at hand is the job market improving? And, all indications are, everything that I've read, and I try to keep up with the stats pretty closely, is that 2012 will be a better year than 2011. Some of the early indicators of that for us is that we have far more jobs in our site. That started really right after Christmas, and now coming into January, we can see our employers posting many, many more jobs. So it being an election year, all indications are that this is going to be a much better year than 2011. So those on the phone who are looking feel encouraged. I will also say that the Q1, January, February, March of every year is the hiring season. So if ever there was a time for you to be getting out there and becoming active and really taking your job search seriously, this is the time. No better time than January. Okay. I think that's it for now. Before we wrap up, could you, Vance, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here, but we're getting there. If you would like help with rewriting your resume, we are offering a special package and a discount for anyone that's attended this workshop. It is our best discount, and it includes a full resume rewrite, a cover letter, and an e-version of your resume that's specifically formatted for submitting to databases. And also as a bonus, we're including a free thank you note that can be used after the interview. Something we didn't address, which is what to do after the interview, and maybe we'll do that in one of our next seminars, but certainly sending a thank you note will set you apart from the competition. This package also includes our 60-day guarantee that John mentioned earlier, which means that if you don't get an interview in the first 60 days after we've rewritten your resume, we will rewrite your resume for free. So we'll work with you until you feel comfortable that you've got the resume that is going to land you the interviews. So to purchase this package, it is a special package for people who attended the webinar. You can call into our resume now and use the code word Sally. Or later today or tomorrow, as soon as we can get it out, we're going to send out a link that will allow you to purchase this specific package that includes all of the special bonuses that go with this program. Okay, that is it. I'd like to close by saying thank you for attending. I hope this information was helpful. I wish you all well in your job search and best wishes for a happy new year. That concludes our seminar. Look for additional topics in the upcoming weeks. Thank you.